What is your calling and how is it different from your job or your career? When you've found your calling, it gives you life, energy, and meaning through everything that you do. So let's take a deep dive into this topic and explore. Hey guys, it's Anita. Welcome to my creative studio sessions. These are the spaces where I talk about ideas on living a brave, meaningful, and fulfilling life. So the topic of your calling is something that is really close to my heart and is something that I've always pursued. I happen to be someone who tuned into my calling at a young age. I knew I wanted to work in media because for me that was what my 12-year-old self decided would be the most meaningful and impactful way to spread positive messages out in the world. And this was because at that time I was struggling a ton with my body image, and I was convinced that it was because of the advertising industry. I know it's a lot more nuanced than that, but that calling has just kind of stuck with me, and it's something that has been a red thread through my whole life. Now, in your own life, it might not be as obvious as that, but when you're connected to your calling, it gives so much life to everything that you do. So let's share a couple of thoughts on what is your calling and how you can find it. There are two of my favorite quotes that work in tandem when it comes to this topic. The first one is by Howard Thurman. Don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive, because what the world needs is people who have come alive. The second quote actually threads beautifully into the first one, and it's by Frederick Buechner. The place God calls you is the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. So the thing with a calling, it is a cause or a reason that pulls you to become and to step into a bolder, braver, grander, often kinder and more compassionate and loving version of yourself. It is usually tied to higher values like compassion or love, and has to do with making a difference in the world. Now, it could be something big like changing the world, but it could also be being an incredible mom to your 3 kids or being an incredible wife or sister. I know there are lots of things that people can do to find their life calling, like life coaching or doing all of these quizzes and tests. And I'm not saying that those are bad. There's a place for those and those can be helpful. But in my experience, I've really seen how it's a personal quest that requires a personal commitment. If you want to live your calling and have the kind of life fulfillment that comes from being someone connected to their calling, it's not just something that you can find, slip into the right job, and then you're done. Living a fulfilling life is a lifelong journey and process, and it's something that's constantly going to unfold. So, for example, even though I knew I wanted to work in media, I studied media in school, and then I found my way to the internet as a way to produce media. That's not the end. There's still so much more I want to do, and I'm still in the journey of learning, whether it's being a solo creator with media or doing it with a company. So if you've lost touch with your calling, I really encourage you to not lose hope. Imagine that it's like a treasure hunt. You've just got to keep digging and looking. And the more that you get used to moving in the direction of your calling and to what makes you come alive, the more you're going to practice that muscle and the more it's going to wake up and give you energy and passion. And for some people, your calling will actually develop later in life. I happen to be someone who found it young, but I've also heard stories of people who didn't really feel connected to a calling, but the more that they grew up and different things happened in their lives, maybe a loved one died or they were able to embark on this incredible health journey, that becomes a new calling for them. And it's okay to discover new callings. But the most important thing is to stay connected to it, because it may or may not end up being a part of your job. And if you're lucky enough that it is a part of your job, then you've got like a double blessing. But even if you don't, you can still live your calling. Now let's talk about our jobs. A job is something that we do often to keep our life, our finances, our families intact. They're a fact of life. We have to do something with our days, and being able to work, whether it's for yourself or with a company, is a blessing. And if you've spent time discovering what your calling is, you might realize now that your calling is not what you're doing in your job. However, know that where you are right now is still part of the big grand unfolding of your life. And there are a lot of things that you can really learn and develop in your job that are useful for you, and it might play into your calling in the future. So for example, at a job, you can learn how to work with people. You can develop your personal leadership and how to lead other people. You can learn time management, project management. You can learn how to set goals and develop vision, and really practical things like running a business or organization. These are things that will just be a part of life and a part of the growth journey. So even if you're working in a job right now that maybe a part of you feels like it's useless and you don't want to be doing it, you wish you were doing something aligned with your calling, know that it's not wasted. God, the universe, does not waste any experience, and everything can add up to something bigger. However, if you're working in a job where you don't feel fulfilled at all and you're like, this is not my calling, I feel like I'm wasting my time here, it's sucking out my soul, that's okay too. Take a deep breath and just know that this means you're at a point where you're going to figure out how to steer the ship, or you're going to watch God steer the ship for you. This is one of those times, and even I end up in times, even though I'm doing a job that's related to my calling, it is not my calling. They are two different things. My calling is something so much bigger. It's like a lifelong mission, and my job might be like to design a graphic today or to make a video for next week. For me, knowing that those two things are different, like my calling is so much bigger and my job will always feel a bit smaller than, sometimes a lot smaller than my calling, that just makes it okay for me to continue pursuing my calling. And I do it outside of my job. So even developing my friendships and relationships, that's part of my calling. Making content is part of my calling. I do it outside of my jobs. I think it's a lot to ask to expect your whole calling to fit into one job. And in fact, it can't, because your calling is something that might take 20 to 40 years to live out, whereas your job is here and now. So keep those two things separate if you have to, and keep working at both of them. Excel in your job and figure out ways to excel in your calling. And if you're not sure where to start, check out my studio sessions playlist that I'll link below, because I've made a lot more videos talking about how we can bring our calling and our passion and creativity to life. Now let's talk about your career. It's something that's built up over a period of time, and it often has to do with working a number of jobs within a particular industry that allows you to develop specific expertise. And your calling could be connected to your career, but again, these might be two different things. You might have a career in accounting and you discover later on in life that your passion and your calling is fitness and health and wellness. And you might be looking at your career in accounting being like, what the heck? These two things aren't related. And maybe there's a part of you that feels misaligned. Now, I want you, again, to hang on knowing that there might be a point in the future where these two roads will come together. But until then, it's okay to keep nurturing your calling and keep growing in your health journey, if that's your calling, and also to keep working in your career. A big thing as you will navigate the world between your job, career, and your calling is to be able to listen to the voice of truth, the voice of love, or what I also like to call the voice of God in your heart. So if you're at the point where you want to merge your job and your career with your calling, I found an incredible quote in the book, The CEO Next Door, that was just like a poof, mind-blowing moment for me, because it will help you frame your career. Don't look at your career as a succession of jobs to land. Instead, look at your decisions as a portfolio of experiences to build. I love the idea of looking at your career as a portfolio of experiences to build. Because then what do you do with this portfolio of skills and experiences? You then apply it to your calling. So no matter what your calling is, you're going to need practical skills and experiences to really bring it to fruition. So look at your career I'm obviously young and I'm still young in my career and there's a long way to go. But I love the idea of looking at every single company that I work with or every project that I work on as an opportunity to develop skills that I know I'm going to need in my future. And this means that even if I'm working in a job right now that isn't like really aligned with what I want to be doing, there's definitely still skills that I can build. So no matter what I'm doing, I always keep an eye on what are the skills that I can learn. What are the opportunities that this job is bringing me as it builds into my career so that I can ultimately fulfill my calling? So my heart in making this video is really to encourage you to dream big. Dream big in your career, dream big in your future jobs, but most of all, dream big in your calling. I guarantee that there was something in your life when you were little that you wanted to do, that you were like, yeah, this is how I can make a big impact in the world. And maybe you're already doing it. The point though is that you are created with vision and with purpose and with meaning, and the point of living life and living it to the full is to give your gifts to the world, to share your messages with people, to help heal hearts, to create something that is ultimately going to contribute to a more beautiful and loving and compassionate world. So if you ever find yourself mulling over how your job or your career is not fulfilling you, then tune your focus to your calling. Remember that these are three separate things. There are times when they align in life, but I think in every life there are also times when they separate again. And that separation between your calling, your career, and your job is not bad. It just means that you're going to be able to grow in different ways. And also, there are some callings that our society doesn't really pay for. Like our society doesn't really pay for being an amazing mom, but that could be your calling and that could be what you're meant to do. So do that well, knowing that a job is just a job, a career is just a career, and all of these things can change, but your calling is something that is so deep within you and it will give you energy and life and passion that is worth way more than the money that a job or a career could bring. So I hope that you found these thoughts and ideas helpful for you. If you have an inkling of what your calling is, I'd love to hear in the comments below. Just type away. This is just an open space to express who you are and how you feel. There isn't a right or wrong calling. Sometimes it's just an intuitive sense, and the more that we unpack it, the more that it reveals itself. So I'd love to hear from you and to cheer you on in your journey. If you'd like to join in on my adventures as I live out my career and calling, feel free to join me over on Instagram at AnitaWingLee or read more on my blog at AnitaWingLee.com. Thank you guys so much for watching and for being a part of my life and just sharing in this journey with me. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next video.